guess what? Josh, tell him now.
Just kind of flesh this out about 10 minutes.
Yeah, totally. But we figured it would be better to do that rather than make you come up with an application that we've already voted in. So
Let's do it right. We don't have a hurry.
All right.
Shane would be a free pass for all Kaysville rec anything.
Kaysville rec. All right.
Actually, won't do that at all. I got it. What you're saying. Just like,
Okay. I think, is it time?
Thanks, Josh.
One more minute. I'm so excited.
it should be done.
It is working. I'm using it.
There's the password.
Secure Pass 23.
You can. That's
Oh yeah.
The guest, yeah, the guest works without it even.
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. I would like to welcome you to the February 6th, 2020 City Council meeting. And we will first start with our opening provided by Councilmember Adams.
Our Father in heaven, we come before thee at this time. We're grateful for the country we live in. We're so grateful for the moisture we receive, and we're grateful for the chance that we have to be here to discuss the matters of the city that we can have with us understanding of sympathy on all matters, and we can all be friends and continue to work together. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
It's over to the left. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First, I want to announce for anybody who was at home, from now on, all council meetings, we will have half an hour before the council meeting. So if you have questions of council members about anything on the agenda, come and 30 minutes early. We will be here and you can ask us questions then. It's a more conducive format to get your questions answered than doing the 3 minutes at the mic. We still have that. It's just at the end of the meeting. All right. We are going to declaration of any conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Okay. Consent items. Anybody want to remove anything from consent?
I would really like it if we would discuss them.
Okay.
Is all.
Okay.
You know,
so
I think they're such a big deal that I would actually like to discuss them.
okay.
That's
So
all.
what you would do is
I make a motion that we discuss consent items A and B.
there you go.
Actually, really, the only one I'm more wanting to discuss is B.
Okay. So move consent agenda minus item B.
Oh, that's somebody else.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent item A and have a discussion on the consent item B.
Okay. Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Lortz and seconded by Councilmember Blackham. Let's go with Councilmember Adams.
Aye.
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 All right, let's go to item B. Councilmember Blackham.
You know, all I would really like is, since it is kind of awarding a contract of about $240,000, I would just really like the council to make sure that they're in full understanding of what it is. I know I wasn't. I mean, I know the project. I know it's for Connector Road, but I don't know where the money's come. I didn't know where all the money was coming from, what money's been donated, what money we're obligated to, how the project's broken up into certain aspects, and I just thought it was very important that the council knew that, and if they had any questions, this was a great time to ask before, not after.
Sounds good. And we do have our Public Works Director, Josh, here. Josh, do you want to give us a synopsis of the project, the costs, and where the money's coming from?
Yeah, exactly. So the project essentially, sorry, is that really loud? The project essentially has been in the works for probably 10 or more years. West Davis Corridor has been planned by UDOT for several decades. And the big question that has arisen with Kaysville and Farmington, especially as UDOT announced that they'd be installing an interchange or an on-off ramp there right by the sewer district, is how do we get people to it and how do we get people off of it without overwhelming the existing local streets like 350 East, the Parkwood subdivision, Sunset, Shepherd, etc. So the concept was formulated of being able to connect from Shepherd Lane, where UDOT plans to redo the Shepherd Lane overpass, into an interchange, which will be on-off ramps there, and connect down to West Davis Corridor. So that'd be one part of the project, is that road. And then the other parts of the project are more Kaysville-centric, connecting from that interchange north towards Shepherd Lane and Sunset Drive, and then continuing around towards Angel Street. And what that does, it does introduce traffic where there wasn't traffic before, but it more evenly distributes that new traffic instead of, like I said, it being on a new or on an existing street, a subdivision residential road. Let's send that to these new connector roads that aren't going to have existing homes really fronting them, and let it kind of fan out more evenly. The funding has been one of the big question marks, and Kaysville City, like talking with Councilmember Blackham, the city's not really in the business of building new roads. And we're here to maintain existing roads. New roads come with development, and so we really don't want to be paying out of pocket for this project. Number one, because we want to avoid that cost, and number two, there's regional benefit, not just local benefit to Kaysville and Farmington. So the funds are currently comprised of $100,000 from Davis County that Farmington and Kaysville jointly applied for and received. There is approximately $3.4 million from WFRC, the Metropolitan Planning Organization for Davis County. Those are dollars that were defederalized, so we're going by state rules with that money now. And then an additional $6 million from the state legislature. We've got a gap in between what we're estimating the project total of somewhere in the $12 to $13 million range for all of those segments, a gap of about $3.5-ish million that we're still trying to identify what is the source, and we do have some options that we're continuing to flush out. The goal is, like I said, let's avoid having to pay out of pocket for this. A lot of these funds are funds that we're going to be reimbursed, so Kaysville and Farmington would be spending funds up front in some cases, like the $100,000 is reimbursed money. So the funds that we've spent so far fall under that same category of reimbursable funds, whether through the county or the Wasatch Front Regional Council funds. And now that we have access to that $6 million from the state, that's just in a pot. So that's where the existing funds have come from. This $240,000 would also be coming from those funds. And Horrocks is a company that has been involved with this project right from the very beginning, starting with doing some traffic studies when we had bid out and hired them to update traffic studies for the it's blanking on me, the impact fee and capital facility plan update, and decided to take that a step further with Farmington and have them analyze the impacts on this connector road concept, and also the impact of not having the connector road concept. Horrocks then put together kind of a very preliminary design, basically drawing lines on a map that we used in taking to the state to try and secure that additional $6 million. And then we went out to bid again with Farmington for the environmental assessment. That environmental assessment, Horrocks was the low bid, which we kind of anticipated. They had more experience and a lot of the behind-the-scenes work done, and so that put them at a competitive advantage, and they ended up winning that bid. And then this contract that you see before you tonight is taking the preliminary design that we've got, the line on a map, and incorporate a more thorough topographical survey, do some geotechnical studies and sampling, take into account a lot of the public input and other information that we've received as we've continued forward through this process, and hone in towards that final design, a design where we can put it out to bid and put something in the hands of a contractor.
All right, thank you.
So this,
Councilmember Blackman.
so this actually does get it to final drawings to where you could bid on it, and
Yeah.
you should have the entire project. Because kind of a little background here is obviously, when the Legacy first came out, there was no interchange there, and it was very advantageous to Farmington to have an interchange there. The problem was most of it was in Kaysville, because it had connectivity to Station Park and their freeway and all their commercial there. So, but it makes a lot of sense. It adds a lot of connectivity to it, and that's all. I mean, there's a lot that has to be built in Farmington, and not quite as much in Kaysville, but the impacts, the Farmington definitely gets an advantage of bringing all those cars up into Station Park, but also, being able to tie Angel Street into it.
That's right.
And I think that's the key thing that I'm looking for, is just making sure that it all stays as one project. And I don't want to, I know we're going to get further into a contract, another deal here with Farmington, and we'll talk about that when we get to it, but I'm just trying to make sure that it's not phased so much as it's left as one project.
That's
so
right.
that we don't end up
Holding
leaving
the
out,
bag.
Yeah, holding the bag on a portion that doesn't get done. And I think when you see the true advantages to what they're gaining, and we are too, but it's just as important to us to get that much done as it is to them.
That's right. And that is one of the things that Mayor Hyatt and I, it was overlapping our times, wanted to make sure that if we went forward with this, that it was one project. So we don't build until we have all the money.
Well, right, and we don't just build certain portions of it
Right.
and run
And,
out of it.
oh,
All of a sudden,
forget
well,
about
darn it, we didn't
Kaysville
get
section.
that done,
Right,
and
exactly.
so it's very concerning to me.
Absolutely.
Because obviously there's a huge advantage.
Because once
Right.
they get what they need,
Yeah,
what's
and
the
that- and that's
advantage
950
to them
North,
to go
is-
advocate for more funding, right?
Exactly.
I think
Exactly.
that's been one of our primary concerns is, look, we want to be good players in the sandbox, and there's tremendous benefit to Farmington, and I think to Kaysville as well. But yeah, this is one project as we see it, and if that means that, hey, we're going to start here and we're going to do this piece and move in that direction, that's one thing. But to say, let's isolate here and sayonara and good luck, that's a different story for sure.
The overpass, somehow, the cost of the overpass was what the federal government ended up giving, and you don't want to only get so much based on, you want the project to be a whole.
Correct.
And that's
Yeah.
that's my concern, really.
Absolutely, and so we need to be wary of that as we go forward. I will say that Farmington has been great to work with. They are, they're highly motivated.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just something that we're going to keep our eye on. Yes, exactly. So, yes, would you like to move B?
Can I ask just
Of course you may. Councilmember Adams.
where Michelle, actually, Councilmember Barbara wanted to say something?
Oh, okay. I was just going to say on Horrocks is a company, I'm saying that right? They, the first time I interacted with them was years ago, but when we started working on this project, but the open house that we had at the sewer district probably a couple months ago was one of the better done that I had. I had a lot of residents tell me how helpful it was for them to see all of the plans, have the communication go back and forth, and then I know several residents who've been engaging with them, just asking questions about access points specifically, and obviously they haven't committed to anything they're not able to, but they've shown exactly where things are laid out, and so from what we've seen so far, I think they've done a really great job on this project, and
Yeah.
I'm glad we get to keep them on.
I think we've been fortunate, and there's a lot of companies that can do great work,
Yeah.
and Horrocks does not have a monopoly on doing good work. But yeah, we've been very fortunate to work with them thus far, and also not having to find a new suitor, so to speak, and all right, let's get you up to speed, and let's take the time to get you on board and hit the pavement. So, yeah.
And the good thing also that I know about Horrocks is Horrocks and UDOT both have a real commitment to public participation, and it was evident at the open house. So we're happy to have them. All right, Councilmember Adams.
Quick question, and I'm sure this is the case, but the amount that is estimated for building the road, I think, what is it, 12?
Yeah, between 12 and 13 is our current estimate on that project.
And was all this sort of factored into that? Because that was the one thing that I kind of had a question. I'm like, it seems like that would have been factored into the bid for how much the road was ultimately going to cost.
The bigger portions for things like design were factored in. The environmental assessment wasn't factored in to that. I think it was about $90,000 because we had the option of, if you don't want to do an environmental assessment, you don't need to do an environmental assessment, or you could say your environmental assessment is roll the window down and give a thumbs up. But yeah, other than that, factoring in design costs, public participation and outreach during the project, and noticing in the community on city websites and things like that are typically factored into those estimates.
Okay. Yeah, I figured that as much, but didn't know if we were over or under where we thought this part of the bid would cost. You know what I mean?
I think we're in better shape than we anticipated. It's not a guarantee. As you go through the design process, you end up fleshing out a lot of issues that you didn't know about before, of soil conditions that are going to require a lot of work, or existing utilities that nobody knew existed. All those things can make the cost rise. But dealing with a project that is not using federal funds makes the project a little bit simpler as far as the legwork we've got to do on the back end. So that estimate does factor in some of the federal requirements. So there's potential there, but far from a guarantee that, hey, maybe we're actually better somewhat than we thought we were. But still, I would say that we're in that $3 to $3.5 million gap range right now.
Okay, great.
All right, since we are going to talk about this some more under work, I would like to move, will somebody please move B?
I will make a motion that we actually move consent item B down to the work item discussion.
Actually, you just say, I would like to move item B.
Okay, I'd like to move item B.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved by Councilmember Blackham and seconded by Councilmember Barber. Any comments?
I just have one more little comment
Okay,
on that.
go for it.
And the only thing I'm saying is, and my background comes from building construction drawings and those types of things, not so much, the stuff below the ground, but above the ground. And the only thing I look at is I look at in their task C, it talks about what they provide at 60% drawings, and the cost there is $79,000, and then to me they have 40% left to do, and that's $106,000. Usually it's a smaller number, so I leave that up to you, Josh, to make sure. And I realize these are maximums; they're not they could
Right.
be less than what these totals they are giving you are. They're not supposed to go over, but they could be less.
Yeah.
But it just generally, usually, if you're at 60% drawings, there's not. Most of the legwork's done, most of the little things are done, you're just fine on things, and to have that amount higher than the 60% just seemed a little odd. So.
Yeah, we got an initial proposal from Horrocks that after talking with them and working with them, we were able to get that price down $150,000 from what it was previously. And yeah, like you said, these are maximums that, that's what an engineer does. If I design something, I am going to factor of safety it to death. And I think there is a little bit of that in the bidding world of, hey, we want to make sure that we're safe and covered. And I would hope that you see these numbers less than what they're showing here. They're trying to account for the unknowns as we go into design, and hey, we didn't realize that there's this thing here. Farmer Joe, 80 years ago was storing toxic waste for the government or something. Whatever the unknown is, things are somewhat accounted for, and we want to come in underneath that.
Okay. All right, so it's been moved, seconded. Any other comments? Councilmember Barber.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay. Under action items, we are tabling adoption of the Kaysville City Strategic Plan are we moving it to the 20th? We are moving it to the 20th, so we will strike that one from our agenda. We are moving on to work items. So discussion about potential interlocal cooperation agreement with Farmington regarding the Connector Road project. So we have a good groundwork laid. We have an idea of the project, what it's there for, and that we're working with Farmington currently. Josh.
Yeah, so as stated, we've been working with Farmington for a little bit over 2 years on this process, and part of that has been utilizing some of the funds that we've received to get some of this work done. As we have continued moving forward, this interlocal agreement deals more so with kind of the administration and construction side of the project, but it does touch on the finances. It touches on, like was mentioned, phasing. The interlocal does specifically mention phasing the project, but as we met, myself, Shane, and the Farmington City Manager and Farmington Engineer, discussing that kind of primary focus from Kaysville is, hey, we want to be good partners, but this is a huge concern and a huge priority to Kaysville is we don't want to be left holding the bag, like you said. This is one project. It'll start as one project and we'll finish it as one project. And we're not opposed to starting certain portions and moving through those portions as we go through. We certainly want the funds in place before we get started, but there may be a situation where we have identified the funds and we need to get the project going, and that kind of approach allows you to do that is, hey, we're still finalizing things here or whatever the case may be, but let's get moving so that we don't want to get going the same time or behind UDOT is one of the big focuses is once UDOT has gone in and started doing things, we then have to work around them. and are affected and impacted by their schedule, by some of their requirements that may come up. So, I'm very thankful for Farmington City. I think maybe there have been some difficult situations between Kaysville and Farmington in the past with new blood. I can't speak to the past, but having worked with them now, great relationship there, and we want to maintain that. But this interlocal does provide some additional protections of, well, let's formalize the discussions that we've had and acknowledge those. So yeah, that's the draft that you've, yeah, yes. Exactly.
All right. Is there anything we need to specifically discuss on this?
I do want to discuss
yes.
a part of the only thing that I am concerned with is Section 3.
Okay.
And it goes back to my comments that I made. And it reads, the parties agree that the funding for 950 North Sunset Drive and Angel Street is not available at the time of awarding the bid. The project shall be divided into 2 phases with the construction of 950 North Sunset Drive and the first phase, and the construction of Angel Street as a second phase. See, and that's the concern I have, is I don't want Angel Street to be a second phase. I want it all to be included in the project. If we have to worry about phasing it in the future for some reason because we were unable to do, then maybe we come back and revisit it, but I don't think this document should actually spell it out. I think it needs to be in one project.
What are you okay with phasing if it said the parties agree that if the funding is in place? Because that's kind of the...
Well, if the funding's in place, then there's absolutely no reason to phase. I think the only what I'm afraid of is if it comes in at, we have $10 million and it's $12 million, then they'll say, let's just take out the Angel Street portion and we won't get that done because of all the extras and overages you never know about.
Right.
Then Angel Street will just get put back, and then I'm afraid that it will get forgot about. And so I'd really like to see that phasing portion taken out of there so that it's just one project and we're working on one project. And
you probably don't care how it's constructed if it's completely funded.
No, if it's fully
you want
funded,
to go here
it's all
first
part of
and
the
then
project,
second,
and in the contract for the contractor who's awarded the bid, it includes everything with not that being an extra or whatever. It's just part of the project. Then that's kind of how we want it to be, I would hope. So,
would they be open to us saying we don't start the project until all the money's in place?
I mean, if that's what it is, I think they'd be reluctant and a little concerned.
But I think the only hesitation there is just the potential for the project as a whole being held up. I like the idea of, hey, we're not doing anything until we have the funds, just from a fiscal sense. But again, dealing with, you've got UDOT kind of breathing down your neck, and taking advantage of construction seasons while you have them, and not stretching into additional years.
I wonder if we could word it so this body would have it's worded so it is one project, it is fully funded, or
can we just take
City
out
Council,
the phasing? Can we just take out the phasing portion of it for now?
I think the intent of the word phasing was just saying, hey, the sequence is this, this, this. So if we were to even remove the word phasing and discuss sequencing.
Says, and the construction of Angel Street as a second phase.
So
you don't want that.
Again. Approximately what the breakdowns are between the phases. I mean, are we saying that, okay, the $9 million that we have right now would cover phase 1, and the $3.5 million we don't have is phase 2 Angel, so it's 100% risk.
Yeah, we think that
Pretty
roughly, the money we do have would cover 950 North and Sunset portions, and then Angel is that last piece that we're needing the funding for. Like I said, phasing, that may be a legalese type term, but the the intent behind the word is more so we're kind of starting here and we're moving this direction rather than saying separate legal entities, separate contracts. So I don't think rewording it would be a problem at all.
But to Councilmember Blackham's point, if what happens if we don't get any more funding? We don't get one more dollar.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? They're going to construct 950, they're going to construct the Sunset, and then what? And then we're going to wait until we fund Angel Street.
I think that's a
So,
valid concern. You know,
And if you actually look at it, when you look at how much has to be built on 950 and then the two little connections of Sunset and Shepherd, is very little. I mean, because the UDOT is actually in the portion that the actual interchange is being built, that's in the UDOT contract. It's just we're tying into what there. And so when you look at it, if you take that and see how much is being built in Farmington compared to how much is actually being built in Kaysville, and then you take away the Angel Street portion and say that's your second phase, that's not fair.
Yeah.
I would like to take a pause. We have some special guests here. Would you like to come to the podium? Yes. It's our Youth City Council. Mayor.
Yes.
It's Mayor.
Yes. So we are here to thank the City Council and their staff. So we have brought some cookies from Bowman's and a note for you.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving.
Yes, we're excited.
Awesome. And you got a sample of.
What I want to know, did you have to run a 6-month election?
Ours is just like an hour.
Yeah, about an hour.
An hour election.
An hour election.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Awesome.
Okay. So back to the discussion.
Back to I think.
Was I asking?
Councilmember Adams.
I'd like to make a motion that we eat cookies for the next 15 minutes. No, I mean, I think, Councilmember Blackham brings up probably one of the most important parts of this document, which is the part that I was the most concerned about as well, was how much, it seems like a lot of it is in Farmington. And I'm not saying, well, it's not fair, we got to split it 60-40 type of thing. I get the idea of joint ventures, and it's going to benefit Kaysville residents as much as it is Farmington. But, well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Kaysville people that will take that road into Farmington to go to Farmington Station or whatnot, and it is going to be safer. So I think the idea is that we're okay with it being 50-50, but if we're left with no money, how incentivized is Farmington going to be to help us raise the money to finish Angel Street, which they could probably care less about? And so I think that, in some ways that's the advantage of what we're doing here with the co-op is I think we're putting it into writing that they have to be in partnership with us to finish this. But I think what Councilmember Blackham's saying is that it should say in full, right? Or start with Angel. I don't know that you could do that though. I just think we should say, if we don't have the money, we don't want the road to nowhere, or we need to say that they're responsible to help us get that money. I don't know how you say it so that it makes it binding.
Yeah, I totally believe in the connectivity of the road, and it's a great project. I think so. I just don't want to see us left with that portion out. And so, my telling you that I think it's as important in the Farmington side as is the Kaysville side is saying that that's why I want it all one project. It's all a one important project to me, and I don't want it phased out. I don't want a portion left out. I want to make sure it all gets completed, and let's all work together to get it done.
Well, we'll bring you something back that has some different language, so we can work that through with Nick and the three of us.
Yeah, I think that'll be an easy thing to do, and I think there's wisdom in it.
I think there's going to be more pushback from Farmington than you may think, but it's an easy thing to put words on paper.
I believe in the power of positive thinking.
Yeah, there you go. Let's do it.
And they're not going to get the roads unless they sign this piece of paper. So.
There's that.
That's where my question comes from.
Yes.
Is there a way, can we contractually put it as an entire project that, we're entering into this project together, funding runs out, you're just as on the hook, Farmington, as we are.
I think we kind of, we tried to say, we had to tried to play
Yeah.
it both ways. We tried to say, this is one project, it's all
Yeah.
funded together, we're working on this together, and there'll be phases. So I think
Phases
Councilmember
within the
Blackham,
main
yeah.
project, but no one gets out until it's all done.
Right, and that's what we need to make sure.
I would think contractually we could do that. It might be
Yeah.
really hard to enforce if it gets to that point. And then we're really quite close on the funding. Do we feel confident we could seal that, was it last $3 million that we're lacking?
Yeah, probably at least
3 to 4?
ish, yeah.
3.5.
Depending
Yeah,
on,
which is,
That's a lot of
that's
money.
a lot of money.
Yeah, but the six,
That's our entire street
the
budget.
$6 million has already been
For a
given
year.
to Farmington, is that correct? The $6 million from the legislature
Yeah.
has already been.
it's in their, it's in their.
It's in their
they've
budget.
got it. Mhm.
So,
They-
I mean, we
It's
still
been
have a
received.
couple years to get to the legislature for some more, Mayor. You go to the Hill.
It just would be nice to have that all wrapped up. Put in there. And then Josh, I had one other question. Oh, man, where is it? I'm getting there.
I have a silly question while you're.
I'll go for it.
Maybe it's not silly, but you talked about how it's going to be helpful for us to finish the road prior to UDOT doing the West Davis corridor. I mean, just in my mind, I'm imagining them doing the West Davis corridor and using the connector road with all of their big trucks and everything like that, and just like tearing up our brand new road. I mean, is that just? I mean.
Yeah, UDOT is aware of our plans, and I think that some contractor would at least consider that. And the discussions we've had is, if that were to be the case, we'd want to be granting you access for considerations, and considerations could be any damage is going to be on
We'll
your
certainly work through those
contractor.
details, but one of the key things of the timing too is that when they first put this mink farm interchange down there, they said, if you're not going to do a road here, we're not going to put this interchange here. So I think another one of the phasing ideas is that if there is a part that's not phased, that 950 north, is that what they're calling it, needs to be phase one, because UDOT needs to know that that road's happening so they can even put the interchange there in the first place. Does that make sense? So that's another part of this, that it doesn't need to be constructed. I don't believe that. I think if we had it funded and said, and this agreement will go a long way in that, saying, this is a project we're doing, UDOT, put your interchange there, we're going to get this done, even if it's not before or soon after. I think as long as it's funded, it's.
As you talk about the language, I just encourage you to make sure you look at 6.1C, the state funds, which explicitly says that only when there's an excess will be utilized for phase two. And I think that goes to Councilmember Blackham's concern, that it's actually, and they're saying the first priority of all the funds is
Yeah.
950 and Sunset.
Which is not a problem if it's all funded, is it? But as long as there's not, as long as there's a lack of funding, it's a problem.
Unless we can get it from other funding than state funds.
Yeah.
But I'm
See, and that's my
suspecting state
biggest
funds-
fear is they come down, they grub the whole thing and grub everything, and they just kind of don't do any of that over there, and
Yeah.
it just gets kind of put off, and it ends up being.
Is there an advantage to UDOT having our connector road in? I mean, I'm just thinking that, maybe we say, we put this in, but you guys have to pay for part of it because you're going to be using it to build your road. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be, for sure. And
I don't know if it's more beneficial for them to have concrete to drive on versus.
I've seen that in private industry, in my previous job of, hey, let us scratch your back because it's going to help us save money in the long run, or something along those
Use
lines.
that connector road as a road to drive down to Port,
Yeah.
Hole and whatnot.
Yeah, that could definitely be
Anyway.
an option.
Okay, so you hear our concerns. Anything else?
One last question.
Of course.
Just on I didn't know you talked about this, but the STP funds that require a match of that 291,000, is that a match from each city, or was it that the part that has to be proportional?
So it'd be a shared match. So not, hey, so many feet is going to be so much match, kind of split down the middle.
Interesting. Okay. How'd they come up with that 291 number?
That is a great question.
It just seems I just wasn't sure where it, how it ties
I
in.
think the,
Is that, yeah, is it dedicated from that STP fund? Does it specify how much? You can find this out and we
yeah.
can
Yeah.
bring it back.
I think, yeah, one of the things that they do, they want to make sure you've got
Skin in the game. Skin in the game to the
Wasn't
tune
that
of.
the 14%?
291.
Of
I thought
the
it
4
was
million
10,
that
but
was the
I-
first federal. The first federal wasn't in 14.
Okay. All right.
And we can find out, yeah.
What's the recommendation on this? And what do you want us to do with this item?
Farmington's already passed it, so they'll have to revisit any changes we make, which, we knew that going into this, so it would be nice to, I guess why I say that, because it'd be nice to do this in 2 weeks. I think we can definitely clean up the things that have come up tonight in that time, so.
And if Farmington wants to have a representative here next week,
Sure.
that would be fine.
I welcome Talbot to come.
Yeah, I think that'd be great, actually.
He won't. All right. Okay, so you've got your direction. All right, so we're going to
Thank
move
you.
on to call to the public. And I think who we got, I'm just guessing, it's going to be Dean Wall.
Who could it be?
Dean Wall.
Dean Wall, come on down.
Okay, in case anybody doesn't know, I'm Dean Wall. I'm back again. I've been sick, and then thanks to Kaysville City and the mayor and the city manager and one police officer and 2 firemen for Kaysville City, my wife had to undergo major surgery because of their extensive mishandling of my wife. Almost a year ago, she had to have her right shoulder completely replaced, so it's now all metal and socket now. And I did file my notice of intent to file suit against the city on that behalf. But the question that I had at this point, 2 questions I have is, where does this library stand in this strategic plan that the city has, and where does the internet stand as far as going forward on this strategic plan? Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to go to Councilmember Reports. And in your reports, Councilmember Barber is Parks and Tech. So if you could talk about I would like you to talk about fiber.
Awesome.
And the library. I'll cover that in my remarks. So you go ahead
Okay.
with your
Well,
report.
first of all, before we get to that, Parks and Rec, I think my update last week was pretty about the same. We're working on 4th of July already, which is exciting, and we've had several applications to our Parks and Rec Advisory Board. We're still accepting them until the 27th, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
A little bit longer, so please, we're looking for lots more applications, and then we'll hold interviews for that. So that's really exciting from the Parks and Rec Board. And then after we got that board assembled, we're now working on how we are putting fiber on the ballot in 2020, looking forward to the November 2020 ballot. And we're putting together, once we got our Parks and Rec Board put up, we are doing a small citizens committee to help steer the fiber project, and we'll be putting out some updates for that. And then if anyone, Dean Wall included, has other questions, you can contact me.
Thank you. How about community development? Anything?
I don't have a lot on community development, but if I get the chance to talk about fire, I will.
Okay, that's,
Sounds
you are
scary.
my special emissary with fire, so
I just
please.
have to say, there was a structure fire in Kaysville today, and I'd really like to thank our Kaysville firemen. They did a fantastic job. And thank Layton And thank Farmington for both coming and helping us out with that. And the best thing I can always report after that is fire's out and nobody got hurt. Best thing ever.
And the dog was fine.
That's what I just
All
was
right.
hoping.
That's great. All right. Andre, Councilmember Lords, sorry.
Nothing to report this time.
Okay. Councilmember Adams, anything?
I don't think I have anything to report this time, as much as I love to talk. I don't have anything to, well, something that.
I'm just,
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. I will speak briefly on the library. So the strategic plan is more broad than that. So what we're talking about is our mission statement, vision, goals. We don't have anything specific about the library in there, although history is something that's important to our community. So there are no plans to pull down the library. It is functioning as storage for us right now. We are leaving it as is. We will continue to have discussions with it later, but for right now, it's not causing any problems, so we're just leaving it as it is. So that's the report on the library. All right. Any report from City Manager?
Nothing's tonight, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn?
second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you. All right. And that's a pretty good